Kids from poverty don't call me grandma. My mother didn't raise her voice when she said it. She didn't need to. The sentence landed harder than anything loud ever could. Her manicured fingers pinched the crooked paper. Bracelet my daughter had made. Beads mismatched. Thread uneven. And she set it aside like it carried a stain. The room went quiet in that suffocating, deliberate way only family silence can be. Silverware paused midair. My daughter's hand remained half extended. Small fingers trembling. Her lip quivering as she tried. Not to cry in front of people, who suddenly felt like strangers. I heard the faint hum of the chandelier, the distant ticking of the wall clock, and beneath it all, the slow, rising sound of my own pulse. 15 years of distance hadn't softened my mother. If anything, it had sharpened her. Then my son pushed his chair back, slowly, deliberately, and stood. I'm the child my mother learned to forget in polite company. Not erased, just edited, softened into something easier to explain. I was the one who left the house without permission, and never quite found my way back into it. The one who chose love over approval, a small apartment over a large inheritance, truth over whatever version of success my mother could display to her friends. She calls it poor choices. I call it my life. I raised my children without her money, which meant I raised them without her conditions. It also meant birthdays with homemade cakes, secondhand clothes stitched to last, and gifts like the one now lying untouched beside her. Plate, made with care instead of bought with ease. My daughter still believed effort was enough. My son stopped believing that years ago. I should have known tonight would turn. My mother didn't invite us back after 15 years to reconcile. She invited us to measure us, and she always preferred things she could weigh. I've spent most of my life being underestimated by her, dismissed as impulsive, emotional, incapable of strategy. What she never noticed was this. Silence teaches you how to watch, and watching teaches you where people are weakest. Dinner had been slipping long before that moment. It started with the seating. My mother placed us at the far end of the table, technically included, practically peripheral, close enough to be seen, far enough to be managed. My daughter noticed first. She always notices arrangements. She smiled anyway. Then came the introductions. "This is my daughter," my mother said, not using my name, her hand gesturing vaguely in my direction. "She lives," modestly. A pause sat where pride should have been. When the food arrived, she served everyone else before us. Not rudely, never rudely, just efficiently. Plates passed over us, then returned as an afterthought. By the time my daughter's plate was set down, the steam had already faded. My son said nothing. He watched. My mother asked him about school, but not to listen, only to compare. "Your cousin just got into a private academy," she said lightly, eyes flicking to his worn sleeves. "Opportunities matter." He nodded once, expression unreadable. When my daughter offered her gift, my mother examined it like a receipt she didn't recognize. A small tilt of her head, a thin smile. No gratitude, just assessment. Each moment was precise, measured. Not loud enough to confront, but sharp enough to accumulate. My son didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He looked at my mother the way I never had. Steady, unafraid, as if he were seeing her clearly for the first time, and finding nothing there worth shrinking for. "Then don't call her family." 4 words. They didn't echo. They settled. My mother's face changed, not dramatically, not theatrically, but in a quiet, unmistakable way. The color drained just enough to reveal something beneath the polish. Not anger, not even offense, recognition. For the first time that evening, she wasn't controlling the room. I felt it then, the shift, not in her, but in me. For years I had endured her in small, careful doses, telling myself it was restraint, maturity, patience. But sitting there, watching my daughter shrink, and my son stand alone in a truth, I should have spoken first. Something aligned, not rage, clarity. I reached over, picked up the bracelet she had set aside, and gently fastened it back around my daughter's wrist. My hands didn't shake. This wasn't about defending us in the moment. It was about ending the terms she thought she still held over us. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly how I was going to do it. I didn't argue. That was the first move. People like my mother expect resistance. They know how to redirect it, soften it, dismiss it. What they don't anticipate is absence. I let the evening close without another word worth remembering. We left early, quietly, with dignity intact and no scene to rewrite later. On the drive home, my children slept. I didn't. I thought in patterns. My mother valued reputation above all else. More than relationships, more than truth. Her life was built on curated impressions. Charity boards, donor circles, carefully photographed generosity. She didn't just want to be respected, she wanted to be seen being respected. And that is where she was most fragile. I work in compliance now. Contracts, disclosures, the quiet architecture that holds public images together. I know where obligations live. I know how they unravel when examined properly. Over the next few days, I didn't act emotionally. I reviewed old messages, invitations, photos she had posted, statements she had made. The invitation arrived 3 weeks later. A charity gala, one of my mother's signature events. Polished, photographed, attended by people who believed in the version of her she had spent years perfecting. This time she invited us again. I accepted, not to reconcile, to conclude. The room was everything she valued: glass, light, quiet admiration. Conversations floated in curated tones. My mother moved through it effortlessly, her smile practiced, her posture exact. When she saw us, there was a flicker of hesitation she couldn't quite hide. I didn't approach her first. I spoke to others. Calmly, honestly. When asked about family, I didn't deflect the way I used to. I answered simply, about distance, about choices, about how my children had grown without certain kinds of support. No accusations, no bitterness, just context. People listen differently when there's no drama to dismiss. Later during her speech, she spoke about compassion, about lifting others, about family as a foundation. I watched the room as much as I watched her. A few glances shifted, small ones, subtle. Doubt doesn't explode, it spreads. Afterward, someone asked her a question, gentle, curious, impossible to fully answer without contradiction. For the first time, she paused too long, and in that pause, her control thinned. I didn't need applause, I only needed that moment to exist. The fallout didn't arrive loudly. It came in absences, fewer invitations, longer gaps between calls, the kind of polite distance people create when something no longer feels aligned but hasn't been openly named. My mother's world didn't collapse. It adjusted, and for someone like her, that was worse. At the next event she hosted, attendance was still respectable but not effortless. Conversations lingered just a second too long on certain topics. People asked quieter questions, with sharper edges hidden inside them. Nothing accusatory, just aware. Reputation, I've learned, doesn't shatter, it thins. She called me once, not to apologize, to clarify, to reshape the narrative. I let it ring. At home, things felt different in a way that actually mattered. My daughter wore that bracelet until the thread finally gave out. My son didn't bring up that night again, but he stood a little taller, like something had settled correctly inside him. As for me, I stopped measuring my life against what she could see. That's the real shift. Because this was never about winning against her. It was about removing her as the judge entirely. And once you do that, you realize something simple. The power she held only existed as long as you kept showing up to be measured. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It came in small, unremarkable moments, the kind my mother would never notice. Packing my daughter's lunch while she hummed to herself. Watching my son explain something patiently, confidently, without waiting to be corrected. The quiet rhythm of a home that didn't require performance. I used to think closure needed a conversation, an apology, a clear ending. It doesn't. Sometimes closure is simply the moment you stop expecting someone to become who they never intended to be. My mother still exists in her world. I hear about her occasionally, through extended family, through passing mentions. Her life continues, polished and intact from a distance. But distance is no longer something I feel. It's something I chose. We don't visit. We don't explain. We don't correct whatever version of us she prefers to tell. That used to bother me, the idea of being misunderstood. It doesn't anymore, because my children know exactly who they are, and so do I. The bracelet eventually broke. The thread gave way after months of wear, beads scattering across the kitchen floor. My daughter looked up at me, worried. I smiled, knelt beside her, and helped gather every piece. Some things aren't meant to last as they are. They're meant to be remade, stronger, quieter, and finally on your own terms.